Hello and welcome to a festive edition of our book discussion. This is a little bit more light-hearted than our usual offering. So what we're going to talk about today are the sort of books that we like to read over Christmas, and I quite often find it difficult to get into a novel over Christmas because there's so much going on. So what I really love are things like diaries, books of letters, that sort of thing. Things that you can just sort of open on any old page and just read whatever's there. There's no plot to follow. So we've got a little selection here of books that we've either read or we're going to read. So yeah, let's dive in. Duncan, what have you got?
Okay, well, the first book I've got is following up on a series on, I think it was Amazon Prime, Jeremy Clarkson's Diddley Squat, which of course was the name of his farm. Now, I'm sure lots of you have seen the series, and to me, it was certainly really, really refreshing. I think Jeremy Clarkson is one of those characters you either love or hate, or love to hate, really. Obviously has some pretty controversial views on things. But at the same time, what was interesting, I thought, about the series, and the same thing follows up in the book, is how actually quite self-effacing he was. And of course, the characters in the book are fantastic. I think his name is it Caleb?
Caleb.
Caleb. His sort of right-hand man, who of course has got a great knowledge of grassroots farming, I suppose. His financial advisor, I can't remember his name. And yeah, just some really, really good characters. And I think one of the other things that I think a lot of people found, I certainly did, it gave you a really good insight into the challenges of farming today, certainly in this country. And I think a lot of people have said that the series did more for sort of broadcasting the plight of a farmer today than 20 years of Country File or Farming Today on Radio 4.
Didn't he get to the end of his first year of farming and he found out he'd only made about £1.96 profit?
There was something amazing like that. He made almost no money at all. I think whether it really did or not, but I think it seemed to change his, eco-credentials as well. But no, a really, really good read. And, if you're someone who isn't a Clarkson fan, I challenge you to pick this up and, might slightly change your mind. So, your next book?
My next book is a book that I haven't really read, and I don't know if it's my sort of thing, but I think it would be a great present for, difficult to buy for men maybe. It's by Stephen Fry and it's called Fry's Ties. This came about apparently because when we were all in lockdown, like everybody else, Stephen Fry had a bit of a clear out at home and discovered that he had bazillions of ties. So he started an Instagram page just called Fry's Ties. And he had an incredible reaction to it, lots of followers, lots of comments. So he's made a book of it, really. So it's pictures of his ties, but it's history of ties and history of all the different designers in here. So you get people like, Johnny Bowden he's having a bit of a poke at here, who probably isn't best known for his ties. But anyway, but yeah, it's written with Stephen Fry sort of real wit, and he's such a great writer, so he's always good to read no matter what he's writing about. There's one here, I remember you having ties by Duchamp.
Yes.
Very brightly coloured ties. So, it's just a nice little read. It's more interesting than it would appear to be. I sort of looked at it and thought, ties. But yeah.
Yes, it does make you wonder, how can you possibly have a book on ties?
Yeah, but it isn't just that. It's a sort of history of fashion and a history of all the different designers and the different occasions that you would wear a tie. And lots of quotes. There's a quote on the front from P.G. Wodehouse, which is quite good. But yeah, I think you might like it.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is my next book. It's by Neil Oliver, who I suppose most of us... Pardon?
Love Neil Oliver.
Yeah, most of us would know from his series Coast. He's done various other historical and archaeological programmes on the television. And, of course, probably most recently, a lot of people may have seen him doing his hour or half-hour slot on GB News, which I found certainly very, very enlightening, because I always liked Neil Oliver, but when you do listen to him or read the articles he writes, he's a man of great great soul. He's a very kind man, and has very, very, very strong principles and beliefs. Now, this is a history of the world in 100 moments, which you wouldn't necessarily think that Neil Oliver was qualified to write. But as he says in the book, it's his history in 100 moments, not necessarily world history, although it does cover world history. And I think that a lot of us have got historical markers which aren't necessarily the same markers as others. One thing I always remember very, very clearly is coming home from school one day, and I was, I don't know, I probably work it out, but I think I was about sort of 14 or so, and my mother was sitting at the kitchen table crying. And I, wasn't sort of like my mother. And then a man on the radio said Elvis Presley died. And,
oh gosh, I remember that moment too.
Yeah, and to me, that's a real marker of history. Now, Neil Oliver deals with some rather more sort of bigger moments than that. But as he says, it's his story of the world and history in 100 moments. And definitely worth a read. Really interesting.
Yeah, I might read that one too. My next one is called The Illustrated Etymologicon. Now, I've had this book for years, and this is a new edition which is illustrated. The book I've got is just a paperback of words. And it's etymology, which most of you probably know is the history of words, so the origin of words, where they came from. So in here you'll find things like, why do we say Jack Robinson? Who was Jack Robinson? And why...
Who was Jack Robinson?
Who was he indeed? It'll tell you in here. And it's things like, so for instance, this is all about the Cappuccino monks, who are connected with the Capuchin monkeys, who are also connected...
I think it's the other way around.
What?
Are they the Cappuccino monks?
The Capuchin monks. Capuchin monks, Capuchin monkeys and cappuccino coffee are all related. And it tells you all about why in here. See, Duncan's a bit of a know-all. He'll know everything there is in this book, so it might not be such a good book for you, but yeah.
No, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it's a beautiful book. The illustrations are amazing. Full of trivia, but really interesting trivia. So yes, that's one definitely just to open up at any old page and bore people to death with, really, but yeah.
Right, well, here's a book which I'm probably a little bit late to the game in discovering David Sedaris. Now, David Sedaris is undoubtedly the funniest writer and raconteur that I've come across in donkey's years, if not ever. In American, his humour is very observational humour, and this book, The Best of Me, is just that. The best, as he sees it, of some of his books and essays. And it's incredibly funny. The chapters are quite small, and as I say, they're just his observations on life, his life. But what I would really sort of implore anyone who's interested in this to do is there's going to be a link down below to one of, I think it's a YouTube clip of him reading some of his books, because when you hear his voice, his intonation, his timing,
there's nobody quite like him, is there?
There isn't.
Voice-wise,
he's
not
just,
at all.
Yeah. And it's absolutely fascinating how his diction, just the humour is
very clever,
absolutely hilarious. I will warn you that some of you are nervous disposition may find some of the language a little bit risque.
Yeah, just a little.
Not gratuitous in any sort of way. And the sort of thing we all sort of unfortunately hear on a daily basis. But absolutely hilarious. David Sedaris, The Best of Me.
And I think the little clip we're going to do is a rather festive one, isn't it?
It is very festive.
Hasn't got a very festive
clip in the
title.
link below, and it doesn't have a festive title. Don't let this put you off. This is one of the chapters in the book that he reads, and it's called 6 to 8 Black Men. And
how festive is that?
Exactly. And utterly hilarious, absolutely. So yeah, probably the best thing I've read in a long time.
Also, just on the back of the David Sedaris thing, he's just brought out a volume of diaries called A Carnival of Snackery, which is just that, just a bunch of his diaries from the last 15 years, I think. Lots of little snippets, again, very funny. These are more essays and stories. This Carnival of Snackery is just his diaries. And I've just finished that. I don't know whether you've read it, but it's very good.
But the other thing that I think actually first of all got me into listening to him was downloading one of his books on Audible. I'm sure some of you got Audible, send you audio books, and the joy is that of course he's reading the book, and I must say, the book is fantastic, but listening to him read it is just brilliant.
Yeah,
it really is.
Highly recommended.
So those are.
No, I'm not done yet.
You're not? Okay.
We've got one more to go.
Okay.
So I have just read Louis Theroux. I'm quite a fan of Louis Theroux. I don't think you are, but I quite like him. This is called, rather cheesily, Theroux the Keyhole, and it is his lockdown diaries. He decided that he would write a daily diary when lockdown was sort of mooted last year, sort of February 2020, I think he started it. And he just wrote it on a daily basis, and it's just, even though it's so recent, there's an awful lot in it that you think, oh, I'd forgotten that. So, for instance, one of the entries he puts, that this lockdown looks like it might go on for another 3 weeks. Yes. So, and who knows, we might be in another one by the time this comes out. But, so yeah, it's just his daily observations. You know, he's trying to work at home, as is his wife, and he's got 3 small boys. They're trying to do the homeschooling thing, and which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. But yeah, it's Louis Theroux. It's, you know, his style of writing, so I found it quite funny. And interesting. As I say, it's very recent stuff, but it's just a sort of memory jogger of what we've all been through the last 18 months or 2 years even. Just a slightly Louis Theroux take on it.
Yeah,
so I don't know, you might enjoy it, I don't know. It's not.
Louis Theroux is someone who I do quite enjoy. The only thing I always find about him, and that sort of Griff Rhys-Jones does this as well, there's this like faux naivety. You see him doing his rather sort of daring and risque interviews, and I can't believe he's really that naive. I mean, it works for the television.
Yeah, he gets away with it. I guess.
But that is, I think, being British, and that naivety is how he gets away with sort of interviewing a whole bunch of Hell's Angels who've just done whatever.
So yeah, that's pretty much a selection of what we might be looking at over Christmas. But if you've got anything to add, let us know, because we're always up for your suggestions as well.
And, well, we'll put the titles somewhere down below.
Yeah. Okay, well, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Done. Oh, one take.